Hey, everybody, and welcome to our live stream. I'm Wendy Pfeiffer, and I am the CIO at Nutanix. I have been at Nutanix for about 4 years, and I also serve on the board of Qualys and SATA Systems. I am so excited today to introduce Isaiah Nathaniel. He's the CIO at Delaware Valley Community Health in Pennsylvania. And DVCH delivers high quality, community based primary medical, dental, and behavioral health services to patients regardless of their ability to pay at the time of service. For over 45 years, DVCH has been the safety net provider for Latino and African American communities, and their mission is to serve the underserved in the Delaware Valley. Talk about a mission and talk about a meaning to what you're working on right now, and especially during these times, Isaiah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, listen, we're here today to go over some industry trends and insights from our third annual Enterprise Cloud Index report, which was released just a couple of weeks ago. With insights from this ECI, we can better understand where IT decision makers are currently running business applications and what their strategies are for running them in the future. So, this year's edition focused also on the impact of COVID-19 on current and future IT decisions and the way the pandemic has changed IT strategies. And especially given the mission of your organization, I'm really excited to do a deep dive on some of these key takeaways and try to understand what that means for CIOs like ourselves. All right, so how about we just dive right in? The most important highlight of this ECI to me was this pressing need for digital transformation during COVID. And so let's sort of set the stage. Let's talk about some of the key trends that we're seeing in the IT world today that have been accelerated a bit during COVID 19. So, first of all, COVID 19, the pandemic itself has really sparked an uptick in hybrid interest among IT decision makers. This year's survey, 86% of our respondents agreed that hybrid cloud is the ideal IT operating model for my organization. And I've just been thinking it's just like a hybrid world right now. There's hybrid education and hybrid businesses and hybrid cloud as well. Thinking about, ideal operating models, there was a little bit of a contrast though. 12% currently run a hybrid environment. So even though 86% think it's ideal, just 12% are running a hybrid environment. Although 21% expect to have hybrid deployments within a year and 49% within 3 to 5 years. So, around the world, IT teams plan to see hybrid cloud deployments increasing by more than 37% over the next 5 years. And meanwhile, there's a drop off in running in a single mode. All right, so hybrid cloud's a journey. We're seeing organizations take some significant steps in that direction. But of the many infrastructure categories, this mixed model of private cloud, public cloud, traditional data center, it's the most common. And I'll add 92% of the respondents who currently run on premise infrastructure, or 72% of everybody, have deployed or plan to deploy hyper-converged infrastructure. Now, I know that you are in the midst of that journey yourself, Isaiah. And so I just wondered if you could talk with me a little bit about, what does digital transformation, this moment that we're in, mean to you, and how do these findings play into your vision for healthcare IT more broadly, again, especially during these times?
Well, Wendy, I think the way that you just overlaid this conversation is perfect because CIOs like myself, we use this ECI as a way to kind of strategize for what's coming or what's going on with our peers that we may not get to see. And particularly in a pandemic, you can't see at conferences or speaking engagements outside of Zoom or what we're doing here. So I think the first thing I want to say is that this ECI is important to us. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is that digital transformation, and that I feel that I'm a part of some of the higher end of those statistics when it relates to that hybrid cloud model. And I look at it from a perspective of access and how do I provide access not only to our 50,000 patient lives, but also to our 325 employees. And so I have to have some level of a hybrid nature where no one's in the office anymore. So these two teles, the telehealth and the telework, really are the way that pushed me towards having a hybrid cloud environment that speaks not only to what the patients are requesting and needing, and telehealth, but also for our employees who need to telework. So coming in from the WAN down to the land, we have to make sure that we have those operable opportunities so that at the point of care, we get what we need.
All right. So this point of care, just tell us a little bit about the people who you're serving, the people that those 300 and something employees are serving, and how they're interacting with your organization. Is this over mobile devices? In hospitals? How's that work?
If you'd asked me March 15th, it would have been a totally different answer than the weekend of March 16th when this pandemic happened. So how are we seeing our patients now? We're seeing our 50,000 patient lives through the majority of telehealth with some small section of in-person visits. But as you stated our mission before and you stated our service lines, that's primary care, traditional primary care, adult medicine, internal medicine, optometry, behavioral health, MAT, pediatrics, dental. So all of these service lines are how we normally would see our patients in the office. But since the pandemic has started, we are seeing a majority, 85 to 92% via telehealth, with a small subsection coming into the office. But even when they're in the office, it's a different in-person point of care interaction. It could be really just a telehealth institution where one doctor's in their office, the patient is actually in the room, but with technology and apparatus sitting in the waiting room or in the exam room for the true telehealth visit to occur because of the COVID-19 restrictions. So a little bit about our patients. We have 8 locations in the region, and we service those who are underserved. And the way that that works in a model from a financial perspective is we are reimbursed from CMS to make whole on those visits. So if a patient walks in the door and they have commercial insurance, yes, we'll bill the insurance. But if a patient walks in the door and they have no insurance at all, we still will see them. And that's to our mission. Our mission is to see anyone who needs our services. So once that occurs, then on the back end, we bill CMS for that bottom line to make us whole. So financially, what does that turn into us? That turns us into a $46 million operation that has been in business for over 45 years. And we have 312 at the start of the pandemic. And right now we have 325 employees, and our projections are 350 by the middle of 2021.
Okay, wow. So you just described this massive shift, and that actually matches some of the data that we're seeing in the ECI as well. So unlike other years, this year cutting costs is not the number one motive for modifications to IT infrastructure. It's a few things. 58% of our respondents said greater control of IT resources was one of their reasons. Flexibility to meet dynamic business requirements, like we just talked about, 55% are making changes to address that flexibility. And then finally, better support for customers and remote workers. 46% said that was a primary concern. And of course, 76% said COVID-19 has caused IT to be viewed more strategically in their organizations. I mean, what you just talked about, that's similar in my world as well, right? Suddenly, all of the business of the company is transacted on technology for which you and I are responsible, and in your case, that primary care for people who need it is dependent on the efficacy and scalability and flexibility of the technology that you're using to deliver it. So ultimately, lots of folks, 46% of our ECI respondents said they increased their hybrid investments as a direct result of the pandemic. Um, so, okay, look, I'm thinking about, there's a lot of interesting things about the business that you're in to me, and the care that you give as well. I've got a few questions for you. So, most respondents, about 93%, said their organization's IT infrastructure was either completely or fairly well prepared to fully support remote work. How about you? How prepared were you to shift to remote work and this other thing, remote care?
You know, again, I'll say those two dates specifically, March 15th and March 16th. March 15th, there wasn't a global pandemic. March 16th, there was a global pandemic. And so were we prepared? The easy answer to that question is yes. And the reason we were prepared is because we had Nutanix. That's why I'm doing this ECI for Nutanix right now. That's the easy answer. But let me explain that answer a little bit for those that are looking or even looking at the ECI and looking at this broadcast, because we thought about making the change to just our network was just in disarray at this point. We had massive growth. We went from 55 providers to 74 in a matter of 2.5 years. And all of that was impacting our database. So I knew that I had to make some drastic changes to be able to keep up with the amount of growth that we were seeing pre-pandemic. So we started the conversation with Nutanix. We started the conversation with some of the other HCI vendors out there. I won't mention them on this because they're not in my environment. But the fact of the matter is that Nutanix won us over. And they won us over with their relationships, their quality support, all of the statistics that they showed us, and the fact that they were able to deliver on what they said they were able to deliver on. So were we prepared? We were almost there. We signed a contract in November of 2019, and that proved to be the best decision that I made as CIO yet. Because if it wasn't for Nutanix and the AHV, I said you can't have Nutanix without AHV. It just doesn't exist. Without that, I would not have been able to make a quick flip.
Mm.
In organizations right now, the top executives are, and specifically in healthcare, outside of the CEO, the CMO, and the CIO, to your point, Wendy. So strategically, our CMO and myself as the CIO, we're carrying the load. She's carrying it from the productivity. She's carrying it from the clinical perspective. I'm carrying it from the technology. And together, we are doing what we are charged to do, which is serving the underserved in a quality fashion. So you may say, oh, you could have done something else. Yes, that's true, but our patients deserve quality. Why should I stop that at the technology level?
So you told me that before the pandemic, you had made this decision to move to Nutanix, which, in light of business as usual, was kind of a bold decision. I mean, a new technology, new platform, new model. That took, I think, I don't know, some courage, some vision. What were you thinking at the time, and how's that kind of paid off?
I was thinking of it from an access perspective. And, for me, I take my job very seriously. And I don't care, to me, I don't care what is your socioeconomic status. I don't care what your food insecurity is or your housing status is. I want to provide to you the care that you deserve. And if my job is to do that through technology, I'm going to do that to the best of my ability. I'm going to give you a steak on China. I'm not going to give you a garbage can. So that's how I look at my technology infrastructure, particularly in this underserved market. I want to give them the same quality that I believe I deserve, that they deserve as well as humans on this earth. And this pandemic has shown that healthcare is putting that first. Nutanix is putting that first, and so am I.
I, you know, I think that's so impactful. That's so important. You know, what you just described is sort of a decision-making process that I think a lot of CIOs and IT leaders have been in the business of engaging in, right? Thinking about how can we bring the best to our employees, to our customers? How can we use technology to enable the mission of our businesses? And of course, sort of now more than ever, businesses are relying on some of those decisions that took place before the pandemic and decisions going forward about how we use technology to enable us to go forward. So, one of the things our survey showed was that remote work, this telehealth and teleschool and tele everything, telecommuting that's happening now, is a trend that looks like it's going to persist even after we start to have widespread vaccines and help for folks. First of all, lots more companies are adopting the idea of full-time permanent remote workers. Only 7% of the companies that we surveyed have no full-time remote workers. I'm trying to figure out like who those guys could have been, because at some point, almost everyone has needed to be remote. More companies are adopting a hybrid approach with so many remote workers because of the flexibility, the simplicity, et cetera. So, what I wonder is, what does all this mean for CIOs? We've always sort of encouraged our companies in this direction, but how does this real shift driven by necessity to hybrid cloud in a global pandemic affect us as IT leaders and affect the way that we work? And I think there's a spotlight at least on the role, and we have an opportunity for for elevated response to that. What are some of the thoughts that you have around IT, the role of CIO and IT leadership, and long-term plans that you have as well?
Wendy, that is a question that just made me the hair stand up on my arms and my hands throughout this suit, because I am a former Division I athlete, so competition comes naturally to me. And we are IT leaders, and I bring that same enthusiasm. I call it my Mamba mentality. I bring that same Mamba mentality to every day when I get up. And that's what's been inspiring me to get up every day since March 16th, is the fact that I have an opportunity to put forth quality effort as a leader to my organization. I'm fortunate that I don't have a CFO in my way saying, "Oh, this costs too much. We can't do this." I have a CFO who's saying, "What do we need to do? I'm out of your way. Just tell us what we need to do. We'll figure out a way to pay for it." And I think that's encouraging for any IT leader, is that I know we've been beaten up sometimes when it comes to how much tech costs and the true ROI on it and how much it takes away from the operating expenses for the business. But now is not the time to run in the shell. Now's the time to really put the suit back on and go back in and say, this is what we need to do to stay open. I'm not saying this is what we need to do for our toys or stuff we want to just play with. This is to stay viable as a business. It's interesting. Michael Jordan, who, we all know and love, some may not if you were not a Chicago Bulls fan, but, he said, for every game winning shot I made, I probably missed more. But guess what? He still shot them. So I want to say to all the IT leaders out there, keep shooting. Keep shooting those shots, because now is our time, for all of the times that we were down, to come up and say, here's the plan I've been saying for the last 5, 6 years. Now's time to do it.
Mm. That is, now the hair on my arms is standing up for sure. So inspiring to me. Look, I think we just scratched the surface of both the findings in the ECI and, your thoughts on leadership in general. You can find more about the rest of our findings at the link above. I'm also on LinkedIn at Wendy M. Pfeiffer and Twitter at Wendy M. Pfeiffer. And Isaiah, where can the folks watching find you?
Well, folks can find me on LinkedIn, and you can also check some of the links that should be flashing across the screen here so that we can stay connected. I would love to stay connected with you. I know we can't see each other. I missed going to Nutanix this year. Hopefully, we get to it next year. But thank you guys for having me. It's been great. Wendy, you're a pleasure as always.
Thank you again, Isaiah, for taking the time to chat with me about our third annual ECI report. And thank you, Nutanix followers, for tuning in. Until next time.